12,000 cycles of dominion had dulled the Zarkith's sense of danger. For us, conquest had become routine, like breathing through our secondary lungs. My name is Grand Admiral Vexorn, commander of 17 annexed systems, scourge of 32 sentient species. I sat upon the command throne of the inevitable conquest, surrounded by officers who moved with ritual precision, every gesture a reaffirmation of our superiority. The chamber hummed with violet light from living crystal walls, its glow reflecting on my ceremonial armor. My 6 hearts pulsed in rhythm, a biological symphony of pride. This was what it meant to be Zarkith, to rule, to dominate, to endure when all others fell to dust. Another communique from the Proxima Confederation, Grand Admiral. Lieutenant Mazer's secondary eyes flickered with nervous energy as he presented the message slate. They request an extension on their tribute. I released a sharp exhalation, a hiss echoing through the vaulted command hall. Triple the interest. Inform them that if further delays occur, we shall dispatch a cultural renovation mission. Mazer's breathing slits quivered with amusement. Everyone understood what such a mission meant. The last civilization to undergo one had vanished so completely that only our archives remembered their existence. I leaned back, flexing my central limb so the bioluminescent patterns of perfect health shimmered across my skin. What of the disturbances in Sector 9G? What are they called? Those absurd mammals with a water addiction. Humans, sir, replied Captain Dresak, her armor plates clicking as she approached. Their colony, Nova Esperanza. 30 cycles ago we secured the world for rare isotopes. They resisted briefly, then fell. Ah yes, the wet-skinned primates. I smiled through my upper mouth. Remind me, was that not your first campaign, Captain? Her mandibles twitched. It was. I served then as junior tactical officer. I remembered it well enough, pitiful planetary defenses, laughable orbital cannons, and a governor draped in some ornate headpiece who begged for mercy before fleeing into the bombardment. I laughed then, and laughed again now. She styled herself a princess, didn't she? What was her name? Mazer checked his slate. Alara Vega. Our records note she escaped the surface during final strikes. She fled Rimward but was never considered a threat. Of course not. I dismissed the notion with a wave of my jeweled appendage. What threat could one human pose to an empire spanning thousands of light years? The chamber shifted back to routine efficiency. Strategists updated conquest ledgers, priests of war recited victory oaths, and the vast holographic map glowed at the chamber's center. Purple light marked our territory, spreading across the galactic arm like a consuming organism. At the edges, small flecks of color represented neighboring civilizations, temporary irritants awaiting our inevitable expansion. Krovor, my executive aide, glided forward, his long staff chiming as it struck the floor. Grand Admiral, the Emperor summons you to the centennial celebration of dominance. You are to present the subjugation records of the past 100 cycles. Excellent. I rose, adjusting the scepter of command. Perhaps I will amuse His Radiance with anecdotes from Nova Esperanza. He delights in tales of conquered species breaking under pressure. My officers chuckled on cue. The Emperor enjoyed stories of tears and surrender. The memory of human soldiers sobbing as their defenses crumbled always played well at banquets. Before I departed, my gaze lingered on the strategic display. For all our victories, one ancient truth whispered at the back of my thoughts: never leave a royal line alive. But that was old wisdom from primitive wars. In the age of the Zarkith, no single survivor could challenge us. The centennial celebration lasted 7 standard days. Crystalline palaces glowed with ceremonial fire. Millions of warriors paraded in perfect formations. The Emperor's final oration proclaimed our manifest destiny to rule until stars themselves cooled. I may have shed secretions from an emotion gland during his speech, though I would deny it if questioned. 2 days after our return to the inevitable conquest, the first anomaly arrived. Grand Admiral, said Communications Officer Tron, her neck frills dimming with confusion. Outpost VX-12 is reporting unusual transmissions at the edge of our border. Signal pulses, non-random, artificial in structure. I waved my scepter lazily. Background radiation. A smuggler's encryption. Forwarded to Xenolinguistics. They repeat in binary sequences, sir. Patterns unlike any in our databases. Space is filled with noise, I replied. Hardly worth disturbing the Emperor over. 3 days later, VX-12 went silent. No distress beacon. No battle reports. Simply gone. Tactical Officer Vral's plates clattered as she gave the report. 246 personnel. Station erased mid-transmission. I tapped my digits against the console. Mild concern, nothing more. Dispatch a scout. Class 3 alert. Note possible pirate activity. The scout never returned. Within 48 hours, 2 more outposts ceased all contact. Each disappearance followed the same pattern, binary signals, then silence. That night, the Emperor's hologram filled our chamber, towering over us. His 3 mouths hissed disapproval as his eyes fixed on me. Grand Admiral Vexorn, explain why 3 outposts have ceased under your watch. I bowed, all 4 arms extended. Radiance, perhaps dissident elements, or the Cygnus Rebellion acquiring new stealth technology. We investigate with urgency. I demand results, not excuses. Take the 7th Fleet. Crush whatever dares disturb Imperial borders. Leave no doubt as to Zarketh's supremacy. As you command, Radiance. Within 6 hours, 32 warships formed ranks behind the inevitable conquest. Their purple hulls gleamed like fangs in the void. The Emperor's command was clear: obliterate whoever threatened us and remind the galaxy who ruled. Mazer, loyal as ever, approached hesitantly. Do you believe we will find survivors at VX-12, Admiral? I released a derisive snort. Of course not. But we will find the culprits, and they will serve as examples. Prepare execution chambers. Public discipline broadcasts always strengthen morale. I dictated the opening lines of my eventual report: Vexorn, crusher of border insurgents. Vexorn, swift justice of the Emperor. I imagined the banquet already, my tales of conquest ready for His Radiance's amusement. If only I had remembered the face of the human princess. If only I had listened to the whisper of old wisdom: never leave a royal line alive. But arrogance is the most seductive of luxuries, and the Zarketh had indulged in it for 12 millennia. At that moment, I believed utterly that nothing in the galaxy could unseat us. I was catastrophically wrong. The 7th Fleet cut through hyperspace in flawless formation. 32 warships, hulls gleaming violet and gold, engines flaring like the breath of gods. To an outside observer, it would have seemed the epitome of Zarketh power. To me, Grand Admiral Vexorn, it was routine, an exercise in reassurance after the Emperor's displeasure. Still, a faint unease coiled within my tertiary nervous system. 3 outposts erased without trace, a scout vessel lost, none of it aligned with known pirate tactics. Yet arrogance is the armor of empire, and I wore it well. Status? I asked, voice echoing in the crystalline command deck. Approach vector locked, Admiral, replied Captain Draysack. We will drop from hyperspace in 12 standard minutes. Mazer shifted uncomfortably beside me, his secondary eyes flickering. Sir, if I may, whatever force silenced 3 outposts and a scout, should we not have dispatched a larger fleet? I let out a contemptuous hiss. Mazer, this is a border nuisance. The Emperor's command was not to investigate but to crush. The 7th Fleet is more than sufficient. He bowed his head. Of course, Admiral. The minutes stretched like taut wire. At the appointed moment, stars reformed around us. The black vastness of Sector 9G greeted us, a scatter of cold suns and drifting debris. Scanning, said Tron, her frills pulsing as she bent over the console. Initial sweep detects fragments consistent with Zarketh alloys. The image on the main display shifted. Pieces of outpost VX-12 spun silently through space, twisted beams, shattered plating, no intact structure. Vral, the tactical officer, scraped her claws against her armor. No distress beacons, no lifeboats. The station was annihilated. By whom? I demanded. Her ocular stalks trembled. No known weapons leave such clean ruin. No thermal residue, no radiation traces. It is as if the outpost was simply erased. I tapped my command scepter against the armrest, forcing my voice into calm. Deploy probe drones. Search for energy signatures. Anything. The drones scattered like sparks. For a moment, only silence answered. Then Tron stiffened. Admiral. I have something. Sector 12R. Multiple contacts. Large, moving toward us. How many? My heart's quickened. Her digits stumbled over the console. Hundreds, no, thousands. They were masked, our scanners failed until now. Show me. The main display shifted, and my breathing apparatus faltered. Ships emerged from a shimmering distortion, row upon row, filling space like a tide. Sleek hulls with predatory contours, weapons arrays glowing with cold light. At their center loomed a flagship twice the size of the inevitable conquest, its silhouette alien and terrifying. The chamber went deathly still. Identify them! I barked. Tactical Officer Vraal's plates rattled. Configuration unknown. Energy signatures unmatched in any database. They are powerful, Admiral, beyond anything we've seen. For the first time in decades, a thin strand of uncertainty wound through me. Not fear. Zarkith admirals do not feel fear, but its distant cousin. Open a channel. All frequencies. Tron obeyed, her digits trembling. I rose from my throne, forearms extended in posture of imperial authority. Attention unidentified vessels. This is Grand Admiral Vexorn of the Zarkith Empire. You have trespassed in imperial territory. Identify yourselves immediately or face annihilation. For 23 agonizing seconds, nothing. Then the screen changed. A face appeared. A human face. Female, middle-aged by their pitiful standards. Her skin pale, her hair silver white, pulled back in regal fashion. But her eyes, cold, unyielding, held the weight of entire civilizations. Grand Admiral Vexorn, she said, voice steady as stone. How convenient. I had hoped to encounter you eventually. I did not expect it so soon. Her familiarity unsettled me. You know who I am, yet I am at a disadvantage. Identify yourself. Her lips curved into a smile devoid of warmth. You truly don't recognize me. How predictable. So assured of your supremacy you cannot even remember the faces of those you destroy. Something stirred in memory, an ornate headpiece, a desperate plea, a young woman's defiant glare as her world burned. I am Queen Ilara Vega of Nova Esperanza, she continued. Once a princess before your empire reduced my world to ash 30 years ago. Gasps rippled across the deck. Officers exchanged nervous glances. Mazer nearly dropped his slate. I raised a hand, silencing them. Princess Vega. You survived. My voice held forced amusement. I was told you fled to the Rim. A pity your escape succeeded. It seems you have wasted 3 decades nurturing old grievances instead of embracing reality. Not grievances, Admiral. Her tone sharpened. Preparation. The view widened, showing her command deck. Humans and other species, Jaxari, Cygnus, Orion, stood at consoles. Technology glowed unfamiliar, advanced. While your empire grew complacent, I built. I learned. I gathered allies. Today, we stand united. She gestured toward the armada outside. Your outposts were the beginning. Consider them repayment on a 30-year debt. I forced a laugh, though my heart thundered. You and this collection of exiles dare threaten the Zarkith? Your fleet is impressive, but insufficient. Do you truly imagine? Show them, she said to someone off-screen. The display shifted again, pulling back. What I had thought thousands of ships were revealed as only part of the whole. More cloaking fields dropped. Tens of thousands of vessels filled space, stretching beyond the screen's edges. The chamber filled with the sound of officers breathing, quick and shallow. For the first time in my storied career, words failed me. That army, Ilara said softly, her eyes never leaving mine. And this is only the beginning. We will speak again soon, Admiral. The transmission cut. Silence crashed upon the command deck. The display remained fixed on the impossible fleet facing us. Drasak turned, her voice hushed. Orders, sir? My claws clenched against the throne's armrest. No strategy manual had prepared for this. No projection had considered that humans, the most fragile of prey, could return with such force. I had none to give. The Seventh Fleet had never broken formation in recorded history. Our drills were legend, our maneuvers studied by conquered peoples as proof of Zarkith perfection. Yet within minutes of the human armada's advance, perfection shattered. Multiple contacts, closing fast! Tron cried, her frills flashing panic. They're executing jump transitions inside our perimeter. Impossible! Brawl snapped, claws rattling against her console. No species can achieve that level of precision. And yet it happened again. On the tactical display, entire squadrons of human vessels materialized directly inside our lines. They didn't fire randomly. Each arrival was surgical. Plasma beams cut through engines, command spires, shield emitters. Ships died not in flames of glory but in silence, gutted before crews could react. The inevitable conquest rocked as shockwaves from nearby detonations rattled our hull. Admiral, Battle Group Delta has been erased! Drasak shouted. 23 ships, gone in less than a minute. I forced composure into my posture, standing tall in the command throne. All vessels, defensive protocol Omega. Tighten perimeter. Do not allow them to divide us. But division was their strategy. More jumps bloomed across the display, precise as scalpel cuts. Human ships appeared point-blank against our destroyers, discharging bursts that bypassed our shields as though they weren't there. How are they? Vrawl started, but her voice collapsed into static as her station flickered. Another wave of human firepower sliced through our cruisers. My 6 hearts hammered. For the first time in decades, I recognized the taste of failure. Signal retreat vectors, I commanded. Mazer turned, disbelief in his eyes. Admiral, retreat? We are Zarkith. Do it! My roar silenced the chamber. Better retreat than annihilation. Too late. Escape windows collapsed as more human ships executed synchronized jumps, cutting off exit vectors. They were not improvising. They were orchestrating. Admiral, Tron whispered, her voice thin. They're hurting us. I hated her words because they were true. Our proud fleet was being corralled like livestock towards slaughter. Another blast shook the inevitable conquest. Sparks rained from the ceiling as damaged crews scrambled. On screen, the human flagship loomed larger, its hull black and silver, weapons arrays glowing with restrained menace. At its prow, a symbol unknown to me, a star encircled by interwoven lines, perhaps an emblem of their coalition. Then her face appeared again. Queen Elara Vega. Grand Admiral, she said, her voice calm even as our fleet died around us. You once dismissed my people as fragile. Do they appear fragile now? I forced a sneer. You wield borrowed power, human. Without allies, you are nothing. She inclined her head. Perhaps. But unlike you, I remember my allies. They are not pawns to discard, they are the foundation of strength. Her transmission ended, leaving silence except for the sound of Zarkith's ships tearing apart. Admiral! Drasak shouted. We are losing command integrity across all channels. Squadrons reporting collapse. Casualties escalating. I slammed a claw into the console. Maintain formation! Fight to the... The rest of my order was drowned by an explosion that rippled through a nearby cruiser, fragments scattering against our shields. The fleet was gone. In less than an hour, the 7th Fleet, pride of the border, had been reduced to drifting wreckage. Survivors fled in scattered jumps, discipline shattered. Mazer's voice cracked. Admiral, what are your orders? I stared at the screen, at the endless human armada, at the precision with which they had dismantled us. My scepter felt heavy in my grip. Fall back, I said finally, voice low. All remaining ships, full retreat. Report directly to Imperial Command. Dreysack hesitated. The Emperor will not. I will deal with the Emperor. I snapped. Transmit retreat codes. Survive. That is your order. The inevitable conquest limped into hyperspace, leaving behind the carcasses of 30 warships. For the first time in my career, I abandoned the field not in triumph but in humiliation. The Imperial throne chamber glowed with crystalline light as I bowed low, forearms extended in submission. The Emperor's massive form loomed above, his 3 mouths hissing disdain. You fled, he thundered. You abandoned my fleet. I pressed my head to the floor. Radiance, the enemy's capabilities exceed projection. Their precision jumps, their shield bypassing weapons. Excuses! War Minister Exiled barked. His armor gleamed, his frills quivering with contempt. You would have us believe mammals humbled the 7th Fleet? Laughter rippled through the court. High counselors whispered mockery. Fragile bipeds. Water drinkers. Barely space-worthy. The Emperor raised one massive claw, silencing them. His eyes bored into me. You have commanded for nearly a century, Vexhorn. Have you lost your nerve? Perhaps your primary mind is decaying. My heart thundered, but I forced my tone steady. Radiance, this enemy is no mirage. Their fleet numbers in the thousands. They destroyed 3 outposts and annihilated the 7th Fleet. They are led by the human princess who escaped Nova Esperanza. A ripple of amusement spread through the chamber. A woman? A refugee? Intelligence Director Proer smirked. This is what unravels an empire. She is no longer princess, I said, raising my head. She calls herself queen. And she commands an army the likes of which we have never faced. More laughter. The Emperor's secondary mouth curled in disdain. 1 colony world. Primitive technology. They could not breach even our civilian shields then. You insult us with this fantasy. But the historian, ancient and brittle, stepped forward. His voice rasped. Radiance, our records confirm the Nova Esperanza campaign was costly. 17 warships lost, 20,000 warriors dead. For a primitive world, their resistance was effective. The chamber grew uneasy. The memory had been buried beneath triumph, but truth lingered in archives. The Emperor dismissed it with a wave. 1 world. Irrelevant. Dispatch the 3rd and 5th fleets. 200 warships. Crush this nuisance and return order to the border. Exiled nodded eagerly. Yes, Radiance. We will obliterate them. I raised my voice again, desperate now. Radiance, you underestimate them as we did before. This queen has built something more than a fleet. She has forged a coalition of the conquered. If we treat this as a mere skirmish, we invite disaster. The Emperor's gaze hardened. Enough. You will accompany the reinforcements. Demonstrate proper resolve. Fail again, and do not return. I lowered my head, the weight of inevitability pressing on me. As I left the throne chamber, Krovor walked beside me. His staff chimed softly on the polished floor. They don't believe you. No, I admitted quietly. Just as we did not believe the humans could resist 30 years ago. Just as we did not believe their princess when she vowed revenge. What did she say then? He asked. I remembered her young face on the comm screen, defiance etched into features illuminated by firestorms consuming her world. The stars themselves will witness your reckoning. At the time, I dismissed it as the hollow threat of a broken girl. Now, I was not so certain. The War Council gathered in the Emperor's crystalline chamber, a place meant for triumphs, not desperation. Yet the map projected above the throne burned with red where purple had once stretched unbroken. 23 colonies lost in under a week. Whole garrisons silenced. Shipyards reduced to slag. The Emperor's breathing apparatus hissed in agitation as he rose, towering over the assembly. We have tolerated this humiliation long enough. If conventional fleets falter, we will deploy the extinction-class dreadnoughts. The humans will learn the price of insolence. A ripple of unease passed through the court. Even the war priests, whose chants usually glorified destruction, shifted uncomfortably. The science minister dared to object. Radiance, the planet-killer devices are unstable. Their effects on space-time remain unpredictable. We used them only twice, both against barren moons, and even then the distortions nearly spread beyond control. The Emperor's secondary mouth snapped shut with contempt. Your simulations failed to predict a human queen wielding a fleet of thousands. Spare me your doubts. Deploy them. Target her flagship. Tear it and her apart. The decree was final. 3 dreadnoughts armed with the reality rippers were prepared at once. As they departed, their colossal shadows passed over Zarkithia's spires like omens. I stood with Intelligence Director Proer on the observation deck, watching their departure. My mandibles clicked with unease. This is folly. If the humans have countermeasures, we hand them propaganda beyond price. Proer's frills flattened. Our intercepts suggest they already know of the weapons. They mock them, calling them space rippers. They may be baiting us to use them. The thought chilled me. Then they are not only strong, but calculating. Proer said nothing more. Neither of us dared speak louder doubts with palace walls listening. 2 days later, the dreadnoughts reached the Vrous system, where the human fleet was already dismantling our defenses. Reports streamed in as the weapons were armed. Admiral, Tron whispered from her console, her voice shaking. They've activated the rippers. Energy buildup climbing past safe thresholds. The tactical display blazed with 3 converging beams of warped light, each tearing at the fabric of reality itself. The space between screamed with distortion, stars bending, gravity faltering. But the human flagship remained. The rifts touched its shields and simply vanished. Energy bled away into nothingness, absorbed as though swallowed by an invisible well. The dreadnought crews had barely time to scream before counterstrikes obliterated them. And then the broadcast came. Every screen, every terminal across the Empire lit up with the human queen's image. She stood calm, almost serene, clad in white and silver rather than battle armor. Behind her stood not only humans but Jaxari, Orion, Cygnus, faces of species we had long crushed. Today, she began, her voice carrying the authority of centuries though she was barely past middle age. The Zarkith Empire attempted to wield weapons that rip apart the fabric of existence. Weapons that endangered not only their enemy, but every life in this sector. We neutralized them permanently. Let all civilizations witness both their recklessness and our restraint. We could have turned those devices against their worlds. We chose not to. Remember that. Images of the dreadnought's destruction accompanied her words. She did not gloat. She simply displayed the truth. For the first time, Zarkith's citizens across the Empire saw not glory but shame. The chamber exploded in chaos. War Minister Zekel slammed a fist on the table. She dares mock us in our own homes. The Emperor's primary mouth emitted a guttural roar. We will not negotiate with mammals. Mobilize ground armies. If they rule space, then we will drown them in blood on the soil of our worlds. No species matches Zarkith warrior's hand to claw. I stood slowly, all 4 arms extended. Radiance, forgive my boldness, but this enemy does not fight as we do. Their fleet spares where they could slaughter. They fight with precision, not rage. To meet them with brute force will not. Silence, the Emperor thundered. Your cowardice offends me. You will lead our armies to victory on the ground, or you will be executed for treason. I bowed low, the weight of inevitability pressing down. As you command. After the council, Krovor approached, staff striking softly against the floor. Admiral, they have shown mercy where we never would. Why? Because, I said, voice low, they are not us. And that difference may be our undoing. The ultimatum arrived the next day. A single transmission, carried on every frequency, impossible to block. Queen Ilara Vega appeared again, her eyes colder than ice. Behind her, a document shimmered in holographic clarity. These are our terms of surrender, she declared. They are non-negotiable, but merciful. The Zarkith species will survive. Your civilization may endure, but your empire ends today. The terms scrolled across every screen, Immediate abdication of the Emperor and dissolution of the imperial government. Total disarmament, enforced by the Allied coalition. Return of all conquered worlds to their native peoples. Reparations paid from the imperial treasury. Zarkith society confined to its 3 homeworlds until rehabilitation is complete. War criminals to stand trial before an interspecies tribunal. You have 6 hours to accept, she concluded. Refuse, and we will finish dismantling what little remains of your fleets. The choice is yours, a humbled future, or no future at all. The message ended. The chamber fell into silence so heavy even the war priest said nothing. Then the Emperor laughed. A deep, resonant sound that reverberated through the crystalline walls. Preposterous, he said. We will never bow to inferiors. We will fight to the last hatchling if necessary. Zarkith destiny is eternal. Zekel thumped his chest. Yes, Radiance. Better extinction than submission. Around the chamber, however, I saw doubt, real doubt, for the first time in 12,000 cycles. Officials shifted in discomfort. Even hardened ministers avoided the Emperor's gaze. Pror leaned toward me, whispering so softly only I could hear. They've shown the recordings, Admiral. Of Nova Esperanza, of the Jaxari Purge, of the Orion enslavement. Our people now know. The lies unravel. I said nothing. But I remembered the Queen's words, we chose not to. That choice, more than her fleet, stripped us bare. 6 hours later, the Emperor delivered his answer. His broadcast thundered across the Empire, defiance, destiny, superiority. He mocked the Queen's ultimatum as the delusions of vermin. His voice sought to inspire, but even I could taste hollowness in the cadence. In truth, his refusal sealed our fate. As his speech ended, I turned to Krovor. The humans gave us mercy, I said quietly. We have answered with arrogance. Now they will show us what comes after mercy is refused. And deep within, I feared the answer would be annihilation, not of our bodies, but of everything the Zarkith Empire had ever claimed to be. The last fleets of the Zarkith gathered above the homeworld like battered shields. Once, we had commanded 12,000 warships. Now 317 vessels of mixed class remained, their hulls scarred, their crews weary. This was the sum of our supremacy. I stood on the command throne of the unyielding Dominion, watching the formation take shape. It looked impressive from a distance, rows of violet and gold ships arrayed around Zarkithia Prime, orbital platforms glowing with defensive energy. But I knew the truth. We were exhausted, our resources fractured, our spirit fraying. Admiral, Drasak reported, her mandibles stiff. Perimeter set. Defense grid primed at maximum output. Orbital cannons synchronized. I gave a sharp nod. Good. They will not take our world easily. But a whisper gnawed at me. Perhaps they would not take it at all. Perhaps they would choose something worse. The human fleet arrived with the silence of inevitability. Thousands of ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, surrounding our system in every direction. They did not rush. They advanced methodically, as though time itself obeyed their will. Contact at outer perimeter, Tron called. Her frills dimmed with unease. Enemy fleet establishing vector. They are weaving. Weaving? I demanded. She magnified the display. The human ships moved deliberately between our defenses, not destroying them but forcing us into a funnel, shaping our responses. They're hurting us again, Mazer muttered. His eyes would not meet mine. I clenched my claws. Signal all vessels. Dispersal pattern Vex Omega. Break formation. Maximum randomization. Our ships scattered in sudden bursts, fracturing the funnel. For a moment, I felt the satisfaction of outmaneuvering them. But then the humans accelerated, not to attack, but to complete a vast encirclement. The tactical display flared as the pattern resolved, a perfect sphere around Zarkithia Prime. Drasak whispered, Admiral, they are surrounding the planet itself. Energy surged between human ships, streams of power arcing like lightning. The arcs connected, spread, and solidified into a shimmering lattice that enclosed the world. A containment field, planetary in scale, flawless in execution. I stared, disbelief colliding with dread. No species has developed containment fields beyond a city grid. This is. I could not finish. Tron's voice quivered. Admiral, energy levels rising. They are locking us inside. Then we break out. Zico roared over the comm, his warship tied to ours in command net. All ships, maximum thrust. Breach the lattice. Our fleets obeyed. Beams of violet plasma tore into the barrier. It rippled, absorbed, and remained intact. Not even a fracture. On the screen, the Queen appeared. Her silver hair glimmered beneath the lights of her command deck. She wore military attire now, practical and unadorned, but her eyes carried the calm weight of judgment. Grand Admiral Vexorn, she said evenly. Your Emperor rejected mercy. Now we proceed with the final phase. I forced my stance tall. Containment proves nothing. We will fight you to the last. Her gaze softened, almost pitying. You misunderstand. We have no need to fight you anymore. She gestured, and her fleet responded. Thousands of smaller vessels detached from the containment line, swarming toward our defenses. At first I thought them strike craft. But they did not fire. Instead, they attached themselves to our ships, to platforms, to grid nodes. Boarding craft? Drasak asked. Tron shook her head in disbelief. No. They're interfacing with our systems. Admiral, they're bypassing our encryption. One by one, Zarka's ships went dark. Engines powered down, weapons deactivated, shields collapsed. The orbital platforms dimmed, their firepower silenced. Revert to manual control. I barked. Cut all digital links. Technicians scrambled. Too late. Entire squadrons froze in place, paralyzed not by fire but by infiltration. Even the unyielding Dominion groaned as lights flickered, displays shifted, and our once proud systems bent to alien command. Within minutes, 300 ships became inert monuments. Our mighty defense grid hung lifeless above the capital. The Queen's face returned to the screen. Your fleet is disabled, Admiral. Your defenses neutralized. We spared your warriors where we could have killed them. Every disabled ship represents lives preserved. That is the difference between justice and vengeance. Her words cut deeper than any weapon. Drasak lowered her mandibles. Admiral, what are your orders? I looked at her, at Mazer, at Tron, at every officer who had trusted me through campaigns of conquest. What could I order, when the fight was already gone? Before I could answer, alarms flared. Enemy troops detected on board, Brawl reported. Sections 4 through 7 breached. I drew my ceremonial weapon. Prepare resistance. But when the hatches slid open, what entered were not berserk invaders but soldiers in disciplined ranks. Human marines, armor gleaming, weapons steady but not raised. They advanced with precision, securing corridors without chaos. Behind them, Jaxri auxiliaries, once our prey, now serving their liberators. The leader raised her visor. Admiral Vexorn. By order of Queen Ilara Vega and the Allied Coalition, you are under detainment. Surrender your weapon. I studied them. Their posture held no cruelty, only determination. My claws tightened on the hilt. For a moment, the old instinct to fight to the last sang within me. Then I saw Mazer watching with wide, terrified eyes. I saw Drasak's shoulders sag with exhaustion. And I lowered the blade. I surrender, I said quietly. The weapon was taken. Shackles of restraint clamped onto my limbs. For the first time in my existence, I was no longer master of my fate. They brought me to the palace that had crowned 12 millennia of dominion. Yet it was no longer the palace I knew. Propaganda displays once extolling Zarkat's superiority now flashed evacuation instructions. Imperial banners were torn down, replaced by the emblems of the Allied Coalition. Mixed-species security teams patrolled halls once reserved for Zarkath alone. In the throne chamber, the domination seat stood vacant. At its center, a new command dais pulsed with Allied holographs. And there she was. Queen Ilara Vega. She turned as I was brought forward. Age had traced faint lines across her face, but her presence was unbroken. Regal without ornament, commanding without need of display. Grand Admiral, she said. Thank you for coming peacefully. I gave a bitter laugh. Was there an alternative? There always is, she replied. But you chose to stop fighting. That choice matters. The guards released me, though the restraints remained. The Queen studied me in silence. At last she asked, Do you remember the day you conquered Nova Esperanza? I met her eyes, and for the first time in my long life, I did not lie. Yes. I remember fire. I remember your face on the comms. You warned us that the stars themselves would witness our reckoning. Her gaze did not waver. And now they have. 10 cycles have passed since the day we call the humbling. A decade since Queen Ilara Vega encircled our world, dismantled our fleets, and forced the Zarkith Empire to kneel. Where once our banners declared eternal dominance, now they hang only in museums, labeled artifacts of arrogance. I sit not on a command throne but at a circular council table inside what was once the imperial palace. The crystalline spires still gleam violet under Zarkithia Prime's sun, yet the palace has changed. It no longer serves as a monument to fear but as headquarters for the Galactic Cooperation Council. Where once only Zarkith boots echoed, now footsteps of many species cross its floors: human, Jaxery, Orion, Cygnus, and others I once called prey. My role is that of Cultural Transition Advisor, a title that carries no glory. My task is to help dismantle the empire I spent centuries enforcing. It is punishment and service combined. Some would call it mercy. The early years after our defeat were chaos. Many of my kind could not reconcile life without supremacy. Some chose ritual euthanasia, refusing to exist in a galaxy where they were not rulers. Others fled to remote systems, clinging to fantasies of future reconquest. But the younger generations surprised me. They adapted quickly, forming friendships with species we had enslaved, trading ideas, even intermarrying. What the Empire's might could never accomplish, unity through dominance, the Queen achieved by offering cooperation. I see it each day in the council chamber. Zarkith officers sit beside human diplomats, Cygnus engineers, Orion merchants. They argue, they compromise, they share visions of futures not built on conquest. It unsettles me still, yet also stirs something I struggle to name. My own reckoning came 7 cycles ago. I stood before the tribunal in the great chamber that once housed our war trophies. Evidence of my campaigns was displayed without ceremony: Nova Esperanza's bombardment, the enslavement of the Orion colonies, the purge of Jaxery resistance. I expected execution. Instead, judgment declared I would serve a lifetime in public labor, advising rehabilitation, dismantling propaganda, ensuring no Zarkith could rewrite what truly happened. Execution would be simple. The presiding judge, a human, said. Service will be harder. You will spend your years helping to undo the harm you helped create. They were correct. Every day, as I work alongside those I once conquered, the burden weighs heavier than death ever could. The Queen visits quarterly. She is older now, her hair entirely white, her steps slower, but her presence undiminished. Whenever she enters the chamber, voices fall silent. She does not demand reverence, it simply follows her. This cycle, after the council dismissed, she sought me privately. Admiral, she said, standing beside the window that overlooks the Avenue of Conquest, now renamed the Avenue of Renewal. Statues of past emperors have been toppled, replaced with memorial gardens. The reports suggest your people adapt faster than we anticipated. I inclined my head. Zarkith pride remains, but it bends into new forms. Some now seek superiority in cooperation rather than domination. Her lips curved in the faintest smile. Ambition redirected. That is progress. I studied her, the human who turned refugees into a coalition strong enough to dismantle an empire. And you, Queen Vega, have you found peace? She looked out at the gardens. Peace is never permanent. But I have found purpose. That is enough. Her words stayed with me long after she departed. The most striking change lies not in government halls but in daily life. Where once our culture celebrated conquest festivals, we now hold remembrance ceremonies. On those days, survivors from dozens of species recount what the Empire did to them. It is uncomfortable for Zarkathirs. Many leave in shame. But some stay, listening, acknowledging. The first step toward transformation is facing the truth without denial. Children of our kind grow up hearing not only Zarkath myths of glory but also the voices of those we wronged. They learn cooperation in schools alongside alien peers. They speak of futures where the galaxy is shared, not ruled. These young ones laugh at the idea of eternal dominance. To them, it sounds as ridiculous as ancient superstition. Sometimes, watching them, I wonder if they will truly become better than us. My reflections are not without bitterness. I miss the certainty Empire once provided. Yet I cannot deny the clarity our defeat forced upon me. For 12,000 cycles, we told ourselves we were chosen by destiny. But in the ruins of that destiny, I finally understand, power without justice is ash, and memory without humility is poison. I remember the Queen's words on the day she stood over me in chains. This was never revenge. This is justice. Then I thought her self-righteous. Now, I see she was correct. Tonight, I walk alone through the Memorial Museum where our conquest archives once boasted victories. Holograms play recordings of our atrocities, the firestorms over Nova Esperanza, the enslavement camps, the bombardments. Visitors stand in silence, some weeping, some trembling with anger, some whispering prayers of relief that the nightmare ended. I stand among them, unnoticed, an old soldier remembering too much. If I could send one message back to the arrogant commander I once was, it would be this: never underestimate a people who turn grief into resolve, who transform exile into unity, who build justice where you thought only vengeance could grow. And above all, never underestimate a queen with nothing left to lose. But time runs only forward. My duty now is to help my species walk into a future where we live not as conquerors, but as equals. It is not the fate I envisioned across centuries of command. Yet perhaps, at last, it is the one we deserve.